everyone, and welcome to part two of my awesome interview with Joe Bill. What a great time I had doing the interview and watching it back. It is so good. There is so much in the part one and part two of this interview. Make sure you watch it and watch it again because there is so much there. Just in case you're just tuning in, my name is Lindsay Drummond. I'm interviewing Joe Bill. I am the owner and head teacher coach at Improv Hub, Australia's only online improv school. So if you haven't seen part one yet, go back and watch part one. I really recommend it. In this part two, we finish off speaking about Patti Stiles and Joe Bill's duo Our Play. And then we continue on to speak about Joe Bill's format Scramble, which is an ensemble format. Then we cover Scram with Jill Bernard, and we have a very in-depth dissecting conversation about a particular scene in one of the Scrams that he did with Jill Bernard. My absolute favorite scene of all time, I think. We dissect that. And we also look at Paradigm, which is Joe Bill's duo with Lee White. This is a very in-depth interview. There's a lot in this. Also, there's some great information about Joe Bill's solo starts, ghost characters, scene stacking. This is a fascinating part two for directors. If you're an improv director or you're thinking of directing, it's great to hear Joe Bill talk about his Scramble format in terms of direction and directing. Also, we talk about the Keith and Dell difference, order and chaos, levels of learning, and world politics. So this is a very deep dive into Joe Bill's thoughts, philosophies, and just a really great discussion. He's a really easy guy to talk to, and it's super intelligent. Enjoy. Without any further ado, enjoy part two of Joe Bill. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, this is part two. I strongly recommend that you go back and watch part one first. We're in the middle, we're in the thick of it. Go back there and find out how we got here. How did we get here, Joe?
All of the dirty words.
Yeah. So make sure you go back in the playlist and check that out. What just for context, what we are doing is we're just sort of running through. Joe sent me some awesome videos of stuff that he's done there, all Joe Provs except for the next one that we're going to talk about, and we're just talking about those and his genius. Basically, that's what we're talking about.
If you say so.
Yes, I do say so. All right.
I'm not an appointed by therapy where I can accept that level of word, but
okay.
I sent you a couple of pretty good shows. Fine.
Yeah, you did.
And we just finished up with Our Play with Patti.
That's right. And you were just talking about the olive in the martini, which was beautiful.
Yes. I don't think Patti also mentioned the first time that we played together. The first time we played together was in Germany, in Würzburg. And it was like a little Brauhaus theater, seated, I don't know, 250, 300 people. And they put like an extra 100 people in there, which in Germany with their rules.
Wow.
And so they gave us tech rehearsal time, and we had just sort of agreed to not talk about what we were going to do. And so we just sat there, and she brought in some of Keith's comic books, and I was telling her stories about Dell and telling her stories about Annoyance. And then I tried to nudge her, like, well, what do you think we're going to do? Well, let's not decide yet. Well, all of a sudden, the television crew comes walking into the room.
What?
And Patti and I were like, what? And instantaneously, we turned into people who you might want to see on television. And so we had this, and she was showing me the thing, and I'm like, oh gosh, look at that well. And we just like instantly we just put on this act, and the TV reporter, and well, we thought we would come see you rehearsing the show. Well, there is no rehearsing, this is improvisation, and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think we did, I don't know, maybe like a 15-minute worth of interview or something, and then set them on the way, and then we just laughed, and I said, well, the show's going to be fine. And so without talking about what the show is going to be, we decided 15 or 20 minutes, as we always do before we went on the show, or right before the house was open, to get an iPod from somebody and have them give us their favorite song, and we would plug it into the system. The title of the song would be the title of our play. The song itself would then lead in under black as sort of the establishing music. Lights would come up, we would be on stage, and we would just go until we were done. And we did that, and without talking about anything, we just started playing. We did 52 minutes of Act One. And at the end of that 52 minutes, we had done a perfect two-person narrative that was also a perfect two-person herald.
Wow.
And it
Wow.
was like we couldn't, people were freaked out. We were like a little freaked out. And then they took an intermission, and she said, do you want to play some Keith games in the second half? I'm like, I don't know how to play Keith games, but sure. She goes, oh, don't worry, it'll be a bit of fun, and then we can have some of the other teachers that are here come up and join us. I'm like, yeah, I'm up for anything. I hope after that I don't make us look foolish. And then it was just fun, and I ended up getting, what I remember about that is I just ended up getting whacked with a couch cushion from this German basement and clouds of dust coming up from it.
Jeez.
And it's gross, but everybody seemed to they seemed to enjoy it. And I guess that was
So
like
what's the moral of the story, Joe?
the moral of the story is just you don't need to warm up, you don't need to talk, you just need to go on stage and do your thing. That's all. And I was skeptical about, like, I wasn't afraid, but I'm just like, well, like, what Keith game? She goes, I'll tell you when we get out there. I'm like, oh, okay. But it was fine. That's the moral of the story. Just do it.
Just do it, as Nike would say.
Yep.
Um, all right. So we've established that Patti brings out the lover
She brings out the lover. Yep.
in you,
Yep.
anyway.
In
Yeah.
me. Yeah.
In
Yeah.
you. I wanted to bring up the next video that you sent, which was your organic form that you created.
Oh, the Scramble.
The Scramble. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So talk before I talk you through what I felt watching it. What is your intention with that form?
So the Scramble it's a name that I put on usually anything that I do that I call organic long form at a festival. In this case, I got to work with most of the festival at Improv Amsterdam Festival. I think this was right before COVID started.
Right.
And so the idea is I have a bag of tricks. I have a bag of long form tricks. But for me, it's important to, one, when people from different countries are playing together, I want there to be evidence of everyone's mother tongue.
Yes.
So it's the Tower of Babel, fuck you to everybody. Like, I want us
Yeah.
all to be able to speak in our mother tongues.
Yeah.
And then I want to, there's other teachers and just as experienced as me who do their own formats and stuff. And I want to give everybody a chance to just say, here's how I work. Here's what I typically do. Here's some devices. And everyone in that cast.
Well, the one I saw was
yep.
for people from the Mayday, like Jules Munn, Heather Urquhart, Liz Peters.
Yep. Those people I've all played with before, and we've all done stuff. And then also there was Trixie Beatrix Punchko from Austria, who I had done in Australia. Actually, we had done her format ants, so she has these little things with ants. It turned out to be bees in that show.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
And so that so techniques she likes is like shadowing, and then like ants, like parades of things. So right. we use some of her stuff. We were invited to sing because some of the Maydays sing. I'm trying to remember now. Oh, and then we had
an Aussie guy. It sounded like somebody with an Aussie accent. Maybe I'm wrong there. There's an Aussie guy, maybe a German guy, like there was a lady, I think, speaking German in it.
Oh yeah, that was Trixie.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's Tracy. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Trixie was speaking German. Oh, the French guy. So Frederick from France, he's one of the best physical improviser, clown, silent improvisers in all of France. He's
Wow.
Frederick Pont. He's amazing. So he's one of the guy. He's the taller guy who started the twirling and the chairs bit.
What's with that? How did that keep going for so long, man? I would have, there's no way I could hold a chair for that long. Like, what the hell?
Uh, because he is a not in addition to being an amazing physical improviser and comedian, he is just a master of the small, the silent, the extended,
Wow.
long drawn out beat. And then Ashley, who did it with him, is Aussie, yeah, but he lives in the Netherlands,
Right.
and so he's who joined him in that discovery. And Ashley's like a wonderful actor. I think he has an acting background,
Right.
and a rather soft spoken guy. And he, I had the same thought. They were doing it forever. It's like, well, I guess
Yeah.
this is going to be here forever. Um, but then again, the impact it ends up having is just,
Yes. Yeah.
I
Amazing.
loved it. And the thing that was interesting about that was I ended up marrying two different long form openings. There's an invocation, which is what we start
I
with.
saw the invocation. You're a man after my own heart. I love the invocation. I have to say, we'll come back to that. Yeah. And
Yep. And then that goes into a daisy chain, which is the different people going in and out of
that's
that.
what that is. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
And that's one of my things, and then it's fondly named after a pornographic act with lots of men, but I like calling it a daisy chain.
Okay. Okay.
um, so yeah, so it was invocation into daisy chain, into scenes,
So can I just be
and
clear for the audience? So I think most people know what an invocation is. If they don't, well, you bloody well should.
yep,
The daisy chain thing. So just for my clarity, is it the one where so you start out on your own, you're talking to space, and then somebody
I
fills
do a
that
solo
space?
start. Yeah, I do a solo start. Somebody comes and joins me. Another person solo starts. They swing. It's a swinging gate to that, and so then we take turns. Everybody gets a chance to do two different characters. One's an initiator.
Oh,
One's a
okay.
joiner.
Oh, I didn't notice that. Interesting. Okay. Yeah.
And,
Okay.
and then and it is a tip of the hat to what Jill and I do in Scram, which is
Yes.
solo starts are a thing I started doing, gosh, in the 90s.
So
Be
what was the intention behind that, or did it come naturally, or was there something you wanted to achieve through that? Like what?
um yeah, to play with a ghost character. I thought it was the best way to portray both sex and violence on stage. So if
Interesting.
if the two of us are in a scene, and then I go like this and I come at you like this, you can bolt, and then I'm with my ghost, I'm making out with the ghost.
Okay, so you are a genius.
No, I think it's just drugs. It's also, if we go to fight, we can both pull back and you can start to throw a punch, and then the move is called a bolt. So then it's you drop character, you turn and you bolt, and then you can follow through and you can punch. And so, like, because I'm very tall, it helps by the believability. You get to beat the shit out of me, out of
Yeah.
my ghost character, in whatever way that you want, whatever way it might, call for. And then when you're done, I can come back in, or we can just leave it there. And at the end of the day, I ended up developing that because I wanted to combat improvisers starting the scenes and then like looking to see who would join them. So my
Yes.
all of my
Yes.
all of my
Yes.
neuroscience stuff is to addressing getting out of your head and to eliminate the display of self-consciousness in
Mm,
scenic, especially improvisation. And
mm,
so that
mm.
then I also wanted to I discovered you could also start a scene all by yourself, and you could also end a scene all by yourself. And so lo and behold, in that context, we don't even need each other. And so I'm a Mark and I started this actually. We started this anti got your back campaign, uh, because we
That's
look at
funny.
it as obliged codependence. And so
There's the therapy coming up. There it is.
You know what Brene Brown says.
Yeah.
And so the idea is, what if we're fine? Like, what if I'm fine and what if you're fine? And if everybody's like, got your back, got your back, one of the things that put the annoyance on the map, in the 80s, this is Napier. It's the best way to take care of your scene partner is to take care of yourself first. And so that is.
Are you going to give me the oxygen masks are going to fall from the thing? I mean, that's the classic metaphor.
Yeah, we came to that metaphor later. Once they installed oxygen masks on planes after World War II. No. But yeah, so that's the metaphor that we came to use. That idea Keith especially hated because it's said to lead to ego and blah. His worry was that. And then the mixed counter to that is, yeah, but every time, if we're going to do a play or improvise a piece or a long form, we don't need a fucking director sitting on the side of the stage taking care of the actors and the audience when we can do that ourselves. And I think, they're both right, and I think they both can be right.
Was this the precursor to the big argument, or what?
It was part of it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, because and also annoyance is fuck the audience. The audience's enjoyment will be a consequence of our skill and our commitment to what we're doing.
Okay. Yeah, whereas Kate's not like that at all.
Not at all.
Yeah, he almost venerizes, I guess. Is that a word?
I think so. I know what you mean by it.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
Demonizes? Right? Like demonizes it?
The opposite. I know what you mean.
He venerizes, yeah. He holds up everything we do is for the audience.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Which is what he said to me as an introductory piece of buy-in that he needed before we could have scones and tea one afternoon in Calgary.
Oh my God, did you have scones? Oh my God, yum.
I did. It was great. But it's also, we have to remember that Keith is a playwright and a director.
That's right. Yes.
And Dell is an actor and a director. Yes. And so our notes in the old days, when only 50 people knew what a herald was, our notes, both from Dell and also from Annoyance, so take care of yourself, our notes tended to be notes that were subjective, working from the inside out. And Keith's notes tended to
talk to me about that first. Go into more detail about that. What are you talking
about? So the way it lives in me now is to know how you are is to know who you are. And objectively, how you do what you do is who you are.
Okay, that's very NLP, but anyway.
Of course, well, it's Aristotle.
Okay. All right, Aristotle. We're going back that far. All right.
Yeah, we are that which we repeatedly do.
Okay.
If I can move my queen to pawns, bishops, whatever.
Yeah. All right.
And so of course, Keith, as a director and a playwright, would be worried about the audience and not trusting of actors. Not that he shouldn't be, but especially because part of our training is the suffering of having to figure it out for ourselves without somebody taking a suggestion from the audience and telling the actor what to do. The actor had to think and feel for themselves and get ourselves out of tough situations. Or live with the consequences of our shitty choice. And so that's why, especially in the 90s, and by the time I met Patti, there was a lot of people that were really, really violently opposed to having a Johnstone type moderator on the set with us, stopping things and telling us what to do.
Yeah.
Dell's vision was we ought to be able to become skilled enough in our practice and open enough to group mind that when we improvise, we should be able to improvise a play that's as good as anything that's on Broadway. In fact, better, because it's instantaneous and will never be seen again. So that is still part of my aspiration from Dell, where I think, where I buy Keith a little bit more, as Keith says, trust your obvious, and Dell says, don't say the obvious thing, say the interesting thing.
Yeah, exactly.
To which Mick has the best line for that, but it's like, who has the fucking time? Hold on, let me come up with what's interesting here.
Yeah.
And then the magic, of course, happens when the obvious thing is the interesting thing. and when the
Yeah.
character and the improviser are, present as one. So so the solo start is just based in this idea of like, I have agency, I don't need you, and you're
Mm.
happy to join me. In fact, I'm going to do something and create an energy that is, and how I respond to that energy, because somebody's there, you just can't see them yet, that's so compelling that everyone will rush and want to
Yes.
be there. That is the opposite of, isn't anybody going to come on stage, I'm out here
Yeah.
starting a scene.
Yeah. So it's like an assertiveness that's happening.
I mean, it's just confident acting. And it's like, and then if you know the moves coming, a bolt, bolting in or bolting out, that anybody can leave. And then once you play with this, then all of a sudden you can have two people doing two-person scenes at the same time,
Yeah.
where I'm
Which
playing
is
with a
in
ghost,
Scramble.
and which is in Scramble. Yeah, that's
Yes.
right. And so those are
Yeah.
called scene stacks. So
Right.
you're stacking scenes, and then there's a lot of move. Then it becomes three-dimensional chess. And I'll
Right.
stop there.
Interesting. Yeah, because that particular move, I think I'd seen in Scram before. Like I'd seen you and Jill Bernard in the one that we will talk about, which is of all time one of my favorites.
Hmm.
Don't even get me started on that one. But you two did that in Scram. But in Scramble, what was the interesting thing was, yeah, you would have like more than one of those things going on, like through the show, people talking to nobody, like that kind of thing. Which was really interesting for me. Like watching it, I think it's probably one of the only things I've ever seen that's improv that is performance art. Like it is performance art.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully, yeah. At its
Uh,
best. At its worst, my love, it is a fucking mess. And
yeah. There's
I've directed a couple messes as well.
yeah, they were great players. I mean, you could tell that the players were
100%.
great players. You know,
Yep.
that makes
Amazing
all the
cast.
difference. Yeah. It was a
Mhm.
really great moment when all of those things, a perfect storm that came together, I would say, because I can see how hard that form would be, because it is sort of almost reliant on a kind of organized chaos situation.
It's 100% organized chaos.
Yeah.
And it's based in the idea, again, I was a radio TV major, it's based in the idea that the medium of television is a forced focus. We are forcing you to look, and movies, we're forcing you to look at what we want you to look at. And
Right.
as long as theater is a selective focus by the audience, then let's challenge what selective focus is. So part of,
Mm.
as I developed the Scramble, it went through about 4 incarnations before it came, what you saw. And that's just, no two Scrambles are the same.
Yeah.
But one of my desires was, if you have 100 people in an audience, and you can, people at the bar after the show, you can hear 20 different versions of the show that they saw, but that all of those shows were on stage at the same time. Like that for me was a metaphor for the chaos inside of me that had not been to a therapist yet.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that in the preamble before the show, about the anxiety within yourself. I think what strikes me, what you've just said as well, is also that it's very much like life, as in, and then again we're back to NLP, about what do you focus on and what do you choose to focus on. And so you're kind of giving people a whole palette basically, and they can focus on practically anything that's going on there. And it's interesting because the effect it had on me was very uncomfortable, very disturbing. But I love that feeling. Like I want to feel that feeling, because I feel like that's where growth is, in that uncomfortableness. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that really shows that it's doing its work from that chaos perspective. It's like being in a really fucked up nightmare. So
Mm-hmm.
it's got like a really like, and I just want to grab on to say, and I can't, and it's moving, and it's gonna, so it's really good. It does what great art should do, and it disturbs.
Mm-hmm.
It was a really interesting format to watch from that perspective, and very different to the other stuff, that you sent to me.
Yep.
What I find interesting, I want to ask you a question about this, because you said something about Trixie and the ants and stuff. So is part of the form like you're asking people to also collaborate on certain aspects of things that happen within the form, or?
No, we have a chat about all the things it could be,
Mm-hmm.
including we start with what language does everybody speak?
Right.
All of these languages will be in the show.
Yeah.
And then it's like, what in what styles do people typically play? And then people get a chance to say, here's what I love, and then here's what I don't love.
Right.
And with that group of people, I mean, everybody's so talented. Kiki was the other.
Yeah, there was
Kiki is,
another lady. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, she's Aussie Dutch, and she's a freaking great performer. Jenny, I forget Jenny's name, but she's Dutch. The blonde haired girl. She's the only one I hadn't really worked with before.
Right.
Sort of like the sweet innocent ingenue that was somehow surviving the chaos that I
Oh,
put upon
yes,
her.
that's right. Yeah, 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 totally. Yes, yes.
And she's now part of the artistic direction team of Improv Amsterdam, and is like and directing shows. And it's like,
Great.
I had no idea what she would become, but man, she was just so like solid and good and never baffled at all in that show. And that show can
Yeah.
challenge you.
Oh, yeah.
Um, so yeah, so then we know. Then I run people through some scenes, and I'll typically start with solo starts and see how people do with solo starts. The other piece that I like is German chair movers. And so so anybody that moves a chair, you have to
Saw
pretend
that.
like you're a stagehand in a Brecht play. And
Yeah,
so
right.
so when you come and move chairs, like it's a whole, we all have an alter ego, and we must take care of the chairs, but nobody who's in the scene clears their own chair, because that's for
Yeah.
the stagehands. And so
Yeah.
that also adds a different dynamic to it. And even playing with that, that's how the chair spinning thing got.
I was gonna say, yeah, definitely. Yeah, 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 yeah.
And then that, ironically, that also gives people that are raised with Keith stuff a chance to have some mischief that's in a style.
Yes,
And
that's right.
so, for that, I like it because it's a definitive choice, and it lets everybody have a bit of fun. That's its own thing, and that's the only time that energy shows up on the show.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And there's that part of it where the guy that keeps like trying to sit down and the chair disappears and stuff.
Fred, yeah.
Yeah, I think the Maydays people start chasing him, going no, 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 across the stage because he's trying to find a chair or something. Like there's
Oh
just a
yeah.
lot of like sort of in jokes within in jokes within in jokes.
Yeah, it's
Like that kind
whatever
of.
is. Yeah, I mean, the other tenet is there will be moments of chaos and there will be moments of clusterfuck. And when those happen, we lean into them and extend them rather than pull out. And then we know when we lean in and we extend the chaos, we extend the clusterfuck, that we know that when that clears, we have a moment, or the next thing is a piece of spaciousness. And so I
Mm,
talk a lot about just dynamics. It's the Scramble is also it came out of the idea of like, what if we acted out a bat, but then all the lights are on? And so I don't
yeah,
know if you've
right.
seen a bat before, but but like I'm part of the group that originated the bat as well. And like I'm a little OCD about like I'm OCD about doing the bat correctly, and I'm OCD about doing a proper invocation. And
Right.
so I know how I like them to be.
Yeah.
And now I try not, there is no right way. I just know how I like to be, and I know how to train
Yes.
people if that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
But one of the tenets of the bat is whenever somebody starts something new, they're starting a party, and nobody parties alone. And
Yes.
so that's one of the tenets of Scramble. Whenever somebody starts something new, they're starting a new party. Nobody parties alone. Not
Yeah.
everybody has to go to the party, but at least one other person has to be at that party.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
and that protects everybody's fear, and that allows them to start something. And that plus solo start, they can be by themselves for a while, but with the knowledge that somebody's going to join them.
Yeah.
And then in that way, they have the freedom to solo dance and spotlight dance a little bit, and then and then we also have Emil on lights, who is like one of the greatest technical improvisers in the world. And he's the one
Mm.
that did the mock-up. He had a little bit of visual effects in
Yeah, it
the
was
video
great.
that I
It was
sent.
really good. Yeah, it's really, really well done.
He is a genius. And when he's on the lights and the stuff that he bumps with and whatever, like that helps me look like
Yeah.
a genius. And then also Joe Samuel on piano, who plays piano for the Maydays, and then he plays piano for Heather and I. We do a musical duo called Blues Hammer, which is just it's a musical improv show, but all songs are blues and
Oh, cool.
gospel inspired. because we
Great.
said, we also debuted that in Dubai. We just said, yeah, the only songs anybody really likes are like blues and gospel songs. So we'll just do a whole show of that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, whatever. But I mean, literally, Joe Samuel is one of the best in the world, and I think maybe it was just a piano for that show. But since we did, well, whatever. Let me stay on what I sent you.
Yeah, so basically, like coming back to that Scramble, so it is, yeah, for me, organized chaos, and it's I like a show that the ethos of the show is always crystal clear through it, but also in the effect it has on the audience. So
Yep.
it's kind of very, very congruent.
Mm-hmm.
And I use
To
that in
that
a minute.
declaration, to that ethos, as you say.
Yes, yes,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, 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 totally. That's what I feel about it.
And I believe the biggest internal truth about that is an absence of a display of self-consciousness on anyone's face. Not once in that show do you see a piece of
Yes,
self-consciousness in anybody. And
that's
that's
exactly right.
everything I want in improvisation. That's
That's the
scenic or
pinnacle.
long form. Yeah.
That's the pinnacle.
That's my candy.
Yeah, yeah. It was fantastic. It really was great.
Thank you.
For the others, go back, watch the other video, people.
Yep.
For the other ones, I've sort of said what my perception of what Joe loves comes to me through these things. And for me, I feel like you love patterns, chaos, group mind, that collaboration, building something together. And I think that really comes through. That chaos thing is a really interesting thing. Talk to me about chaos.
I mean, of course, I think it's initially tied to, I'm also, I have hypervigilant anxiety. I spoke a little bit in the last piece just about, growing up, dissociating, and just through trauma. So that I have hypervigilant anxiety, a little bit of OCD, a little PTSD, a little, what's the other one? OCD piece it is, ADHD, PTS. I have all the Ds. And nothing horrible, but my brain, especially as I've aged, my brain was very chaotic. And one of the things that I learned from Dell, I had only done psychedelics a few times before I
I
moved to
was going to
Chicago.
ask you that question.
Yep. And I was like, and I really, mushrooms upset my stomach, but I really well, everybody else was loving cocaine. My body never liked cocaine, but I loved acid. I loved LSD. And so, I would space it. I also, because of that basketball background, I was never like, I'm going to go on a 2-week acid trip.
Yeah.
But I also, when you're tripping, you're having elevated synaptic reception, and so that's bringing stuff into you, and that allows you to see visuals, that allows you to see hallucinations. And so some of it is, and the people that where Harold was first done, it was a bunch of hippies doing acid in the woods, and Harold was just one thing that Dell and these people did. And then it ended up being the thing that Sharna said. Sharna said, well, let's do Harold. That'll be a thing. All right, great. We'll do Harold then.
Yeah.
And what
was that a Dell impersonation? That was pretty good.
A slight, yes, a slight.
Yeah, yeah.
Except, yeah, I mean, the truth was, like, I arrived in 1985, and Dell had been working with Sharna for 4 years. And when I got there, Dell never taught Harold. Sharna taught Harold, and then Dell taught Now What Can We Do?
Right.
And so, and I don't like, I thought Dell didn't, Sharna initially, her story is like, she wanted Dell to come be a teacher for her. He's like, I don't think I do. And she said, I brought you a bag of weed. I'll give you this weed if you teach for me. Well, all right, then I better go teach an improv class. And so I think Sharna's a brilliant marketer, and I think she like codified Harold in a way and made that sort of like, when you're like an ice skater, you have to do compulsories before you can do your freestyles. And so I looked at that as like, we kind of had to learn Harold with Sharna, and then I forget if like Dell had to bless it or whatever, but then in those days there was only 2 classes. So if you got out of Sharna, then you would get on a team. And if you got on a team, you could work with Dell, and your work with Dell was just ongoing. And so he talked to me a little bit about when you were tripping, the voice of reason that's on your shoulder, and whatever part of the ego, id, superego, whatever the fuck, the person that's in your head that reminds you that gravity still exists, even as you watch paneling melt and shag carpeting wave like wheat fields. Still gravity exists. And so after going through him, then whenever I would do LSD, I was always, in meta observance of myself while I was experiencing what I was experiencing. And I noticed that the way my brain works, there's a lot of inputs that can happen at the same time. And so this idea of order and chaos speaks to that voice of me observing myself under hallucinogens. And actually, when I at first, I told you in the last one, I had 3 cancers, and I had an operation. It was kidney, colon, and prostate. So I had an operation to take out 1 kidney and part of my colon, and they thought they got everything out. And then they came back and said, no, you're going to need chemo. And I'm like, all right, let's do chemo, because I'm from a cancer family. Like, it was no surprise to me. And I immediately just kind of had a different take on it, because I know people that have been through chemo. My mom and dad both went through chemo. They went through radiation. It's like, I just didn't want radiation, but chemo is just more poison. And I'd been poisoning myself forever. And when you go through chemo, they give you a binder like you're starting junior college. And one of the sections in the binder is a section that says possible side effects. And I opened up the 3 classes and I gave it back to the nurse, and I said, I won't be needing this. And she said, well, don't you want to know what possible side effects? No. If I know all the possible side effects, I will manifest
them. Yeah.
And I said, I'm ready for whatever. I literally said this. I said, I'm ready for whatever happens, because I have enough experience with psychedelics that nothing's going to surprise me. And her head like cocked so hard, like, and she said, nobody ever says that. I'm like, yeah, well, but it's true. Like on the worst days going through chemo, it was because of what I knew about hallucinations and like panic, or it's just, I mean, really becomes very Buddhist. It's like, just accept that this is what's here and this is what you're experiencing now. And tomorrow when you wake up, that won't be there. Or a lesser version of, there was no panic. Like, I was never, I was just up for however long chemo went, like, let's fucking do it. And by the time I got through the second, and I had like infusion, and then I had to take pills for 2 weeks and then a week off. And they didn't know if they're going to do that 6 times or 4 times. And by the time I got to the end of the second one, and then my markers were down, and they said, oh, your body's responding really well for this. We think this is going to work. Then they said, I think we're going to be able to do this in 4 rounds, not 6. And so I was never worried about like dying or anything. I was really just, I had that same, some of the Buddhists will say like beginner's mind, child mind, whatever. It's just like, oh, well, now I get to go through chemo, and then I wonder if this will inform me artistically at all. And all it did was just reinforce my happiness that, I did the acid that was around back in the days before it could have been corrupted by all the stuff that killed people, or I got lucky. But I mean, that was extremely informative. And then maybe more than anything, Dell's influence on me on about like how to use acid and how to observe yourself, all of that stuff. That helped me through chemo. And so in a way, chemo was just it was like a logical extension of, it used to be called the throwdown, and then it turned into another thing, and then it was the bat, and then it was scramble, and now it's chemo. And it's like, okay. And chemo is order and chaos and order. And so this is a theme that all of my life, it's just something that goes with me. And I think like other artists, you just kind of put out what you need, the parts of yourself that you need to put out there. And that I get and that it like like wonderful artists relate to it and buy in and dive in, and then we create something that's bigger than any of us. You know, I'm so happy that that show is videoed, because
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's, you know, if I didn't love directing Scramble so much, then I would never have to do another one. But that's the
Yeah.
same. It's the same as the show with Jill, which is like that show that I sent you. We thought
Yeah.
we're never going to do a show that's better than that. And then we were in New Zealand
Amazing.
the beginning of this year. We hadn't done Scram in 2 years, and all of a sudden we did a show in New Zealand that I think is better than that one I sent you.
Oh, you better tell me it was recorded.
I think it's recorded. I have to talk to Wade down there, but they, same thing. They have to render and, do all the
Yeah. Oh, is
things.
it Covert Theatre?
Yeah, at Covert. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they got a good recording sort of thing there. Yeah, that should be good. Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so that's the, if there's any artistic bedrock in me, it's order and chaos. Because that is I guess it would be an analogy. That's that's my awareness of my awareness as I've gone through life. And I consider cancer and chemo the end of regulation, and now I'm in overtime, so I just get like extra days. But I feel like I finally, what I'm happy with is this whole dive into yourself and figuring out our own shit, and oh my God, there is trauma there and all of this other shit. Like, I don't know if I could have done that. I don't even think it's bravery. I think it just stemmed from curiosity of psychedelics and my awareness of that I am order and chaos. And until I was able to look at and address what was chaos inside of me, I was destructive to myself and other people around me. And so it, in the timeline of my life, it's like, oh, I need to bring myself into some type of balance and calmness and serenity and peacefulness, and then extend out this idea of order and chaos artistically and in terms of what I'm doing. And at the end of the day, improvisation is order and chaos. I mean, if you're a sane person.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's really interesting. It's sort of like channeling that into your art in some way.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, which is what I sort of picked up on that one. Now you mentioned Scram. We're going to go there with
Love
this
it.
particular scene. I think it was Greece. Was it Greece?
Yep, it was Athens. It was Mount Improv.
That's it. Mount Improv.
Even the Greeks
nice.
give you a nice pun.
Yeah. Yeah, it was the Greek one. Yeah. And it was Jill Bernard, it was you, it was Scram. And again, you were using that device of the solo, like ghosting. What are you calling it? Ghosting? Well, what are you calling it?
Solo starts.
Okay, solo starts.
Solo start with a ghost character. And Scram is just 3 two-person scenes that happen at the same time. 2 of them start concurrent with 1 actor in each, and then the third one has started, but nobody's there playing it yet. But Jill and I both know there's another scene going on.
Right. Okay. Here we are again to that chaos.
Right. And now
that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
And I am not advocating LSD to the children because the stuff that's out there now, I'm retired and lucky. Like, okay, so go ahead. I'm sorry.
So in this particular show, there was a bit for me when I first saw it, I was like, what the fuck is this? This is incredible. What the fuck is this? And it's the biscuits scene, the dropping of the biscuits on the ground, and just a fucking repeating of that like over and over again, right? This kind of repetition thing is inherent in a lot of what you do. So there's definitely a thing about repetition there.
And the repetition thing is annoyance, and then the flavors of Dada that you see are annoyance. So like, I love playing in Dada.
Dada, what the hell is that?
Like Dada is like theater of the absurd, like Ionesco or Ionesco, I think is some of the Brits say. Ionesco the most, a little bit. Pinter can get Dada-ish. I'm forgetting a big one. So it's just
Yeah.
theater of the it's theater of the absurd. It's a little Brecht is not Dada, or Brecht, as they say, is not Dada, but there's a lot of repetition. And so yeah, if you look up Dada, that is, I think that was a movement in between World War I and World War II, when like all the artists lived in Montmartre and Paris.
Yeah, it's
And it
kind of
was
in
like,
the back of my mind somewhere. Yeah, yeah,
it's like
yeah.
theatrical Salvador Dali kind of
Yes.
stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
And
yeah, I
is there a Meisner aspect to it there as well? There's a whole repetition thing in Meisner as well.
yeah, there can be a lot of what I teach. I had a really not good Meisner teacher. He was more of a coach, and I did not like it at all. But enough actors came to me and said that it really helped them, and so I'm like, okay, well, what's helpful about that? Well, it helps them focus and really get down to what's really real. And I'm like, why? Like, all you have to do is just open up the bag of everything you've repressed, and it's right there. And I'm like, oh no, not every,
That's all. Just open
not
up the
everybody's.
bag. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't need to repeat anything more than twice to like, what emotion does this require? Am I acting and not in real life? I can bring it and listen through it. So there's, for sure, there is a chunk of what I teach. It's in the first 30 seconds. It's
Yes.
and I've added to that the first 30 seconds. Now I teach the first 30 seconds of the next 3 minutes.
Right.
And then in Comedy from Connection, there's Meisner-ish stuff, but it's hacks, it's shortcuts
Mm.
around that. So the rhetorical question is can we get to the same stuff that Meisner was after more expeditiously? And
Right.
some of the repetition also serves the improvisers with acting backgrounds that have done Meisner, who feel more grounded within a piece like Scramble. And Jill has done Meisner before too.
Yeah.
And in that particular show, what was our suggestion? Do you remember?
Oh, Jesus. No, I don't. All I remember is like sort of like the football coach and everything, and then the soup and the
The soup, the chili.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, there was something about, there was just something about, so the idea is Jill starts a Jill scene, I start a Joe scene, because we
Yeah.
have two different sensibilities. Jill Bernard is one of the only people, she may be the best in the world in her capacity to play like hardcore American short form, whimsical hardcore American short form, theater, sports, and all the games that go with that, with the best of American short form sensibility and serious, honest, beautiful moments in long form.
Yes. She's
Like, she is
amazing.
a freaking unicorn.
Amazing.
Like, there's nobody
Yeah.
like her.
No.
And I like, I have a love for her that's unlike anybody else because it's Jill.
Yeah.
And so the secret is when we go over and we take on the ghost characters in each other's scenes,
Yes.
because while we're starting our own scene, we can't track everything the other person is saying in the
Yeah.
other scene.
That's the thing. Yeah.
Repetition helps us
Uh-huh.
get grounded in the other's scene until the other one joins us. And
Right.
so it's a hack for not listening. Or it's a hack. It's because we have to say words that are from the engineering department. We both feel the jazz of each other, but there's been certain words, and Jill will forward plot a little bit more when she does her starts, and I tend to fixate on one thing,
Yeah.
and what you can see in that piece.
Yeah.
And so then when we get back in, we use repetition, and sometimes the way that we use repetition will influence. The idea is this scene plus this scene are the suggestions for the third scene, which has been going on the
Right.
whole.
Right.
And so in that one, usually both characters are there, even though one character might be started. But that one was interesting because she started and my character hadn't arrived yet.
Mm.
And so there was something about it was like the regimented nature of the football coach, the
Yes.
regimented cruelty of the football coach, plus
Yes.
the whimsical fixation on the deliciousness of the chili, and that which was farcical to me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
so when we first really that scene happened because Jill didn't answer the door the first time.
I know.
And when she didn't answer the door the first time, and then I went away, then I had to come back to his pattern. And
Yeah.
so, and once a pattern's established, then it's like, well, okay, now we're in a little bit of the school of, well, if this is true, what else is true?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But,
I mean,
but for,
there's a game, there is a definite game, but there is a meta game as well
yes.
that's sort of going on. And it's just like, what the fuck? Like I said, when I started, I was like, who are these fucking geniuses? What the fuck is going on? And how, like, and not just that though, and you have done this in other things you've done as well. You have this ability to just fucking draw that repetition out until like we're on the border of sick of this shit, right?
Mm-hmm,
And we're just
mm-hmm.
about to fucking, and then bang, something changes,
Yep.
so it's kind of this. I don't know. My image in my mind is a whirling fucking dervish or whatever. Those people that like spin
The
around and
whirling
around.
dervish. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Like there's something there, and then even in that scene, Jill Bernard does this running thing, and sort of makes herself dizzy. And I think she's half telling the truth when she says, "Oh, it's dizzy" or whatever, and she's holding onto the chair. And then
Yes. And we both took on that affect of like somewhat British-ish, but
yes,
not quite. Like it was very
yes.
British or like East, like upper crust, East Coast United States. Like
It was like repressed, like really repressed, high statusy type thing going on, especially with your character. And
um yes, for
she took the
sure.
low status because she gave the biscuits, and then you kept repeating. So not only do you have the sort of repetition of the behavior, but repetition of the word animal and the word tax collector, right? So
Yes. And it started with and
was that a
the device.
suggestion?
What's that?
Maybe was that the suggestion? Is that
What,
why that
what
was kept
biscuits or something?
repeating?
Oh
Yeah.
no, we took a suggestion of a Greek word, and,
Ah,
and we said, what does that mean?
yeah.
And
God, I
I
can't
think it was
remember.
something like delicious or savory or something like that.
Aha. So that's the soup thing, deliciousness of the soup getting all.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
yeah, yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's it. And that extending out the thing until it's all you're almost ready to fucking kill whoever's doing
Yeah,
it, and
yeah.
then it like turns. That is
Yeah.
annoyance 101.
Okay, right. So that's where that comes from.
Yeah, and
Right. Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
very. I mean, I went to college with Mark Sutton and Mick, and then Faye Soloway and a couple other people, but like that's all part of our humor, and that's all a device that's in a lot of the shows that were in annoyance, like it was, and it's also if you've ever watched John Waters movies. Do you know John Waters?
No, no.
Here's your homework. I think it's the second movie. The second movie that John Waters did is an amazing, horrible movie called Desperate Living.
Right.
And it has a style of acting in it that is so uniformly bad. It is its own style of acting.
Right.
And so John Waters, and also like my favorite commercial film of his outside of Hairspray is Serial Mom with Kathleen Turner.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But in John Waters movies, you can hear characters using repetition and saying things again, like in a weird fucking way that
Mm.
definitely influences that style as well. Um, and so, yeah, so for me, the repetition started. The repetition started when I was telling her my whole process about walking up to the door and nobody
Yes.
answering the thing. And
Yeah.
so, and it's something that like we've never done a set like that, but like Jill, like we're in each other's heads, and it's like, if she's if anything, sometimes Jill has to pull the fun out of me a little bit more because Jill is so sparkly that sometimes I'm just like dire.
Yeah.
Um, and so, I mean, that whole play is a freaking repetition festival. And usually we're not connecting story 1, story 2, and story 3.
Right.
But all of the sudden, like my story and the main story had something in, like they had a through line. And I don't know if we like, the agreement is that any one of us can go to any scene that we want for any reason we want. We can
Right.
be bored and we can just go be in another scene while the other scene's going on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But that was for sure the show in which we used the most repetition and varieties of repetition
Yeah, yeah,
ever.
yeah. Because it was like, yeah, it was like meta, as well, around metaphors and repetition of the metaphor, and it's very, very specific animal tax collector, and then behavior repetition of, I got to the door and and she wasn't there, whatever, and then, and
Yes.
what I loved about it though was Jill just let you fucking do it. So you just kept going and going, and then she's just like, and then she's mouthing like what you're saying, like, so there was just this
Yes.
real like sort of patience thing, and then her just sort of like really slowly like going out and then coming back with the tea, and then she's realized there's no tea bag, and then like just this really, so it's just really kind of going through mud, like just walking through mud, like this really like labored thing, while you're just do 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 do, and then do 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 do. So this pacing thing of her like really slow, and you just like going on and on on and
Yeah.
on about this thing, like
I, I mean,
unbelievable.
I think she was in the energy of dread and I was in the energy of mania. And so
Definitely mania. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That
and
was,
so we're
yeah.
very and in a way those two energies map over the football coach and the son more than they did even the soup, but the plot came back to the
Yeah, that's
soup.
right. The suit. Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
And
that's
as
right.
soon
Yeah.
and she it's another one of those moments, what do you call it, like the break moment in the
Yeah.
soup, when I said something about I need the recipe, and then she all of a sudden she does this laugh, ah ah
Yeah.
and it's like, I'm like, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, she's
um
awesome.
and that break into that that laugh, of that foreboding laugh, the what's it called, the
The ominous kind of, what the hell
ominous,
is
yes,
this? Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
To me, that put the cap on Dada. That put the cap on that. Like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah, yeah. We're
that
going
this
there.
next scene is going to have some shit like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Great. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Interesting. But again, that's kind of experience of thematics as well. Like kind of getting, like, you could just say that as someone laughing, but like to say what is the metaphor within the metaphor within the metaphor, you know what I mean? Like to just
mm-hmm.
have that kind of way of thinking about things is interesting and amazing. And she does the pattern break again when you fucking go. So you just strung it out, like I'm in the audience going, oh, for fuck's sake. Like it's just, I got to
Yeah.
the door and you were, it's just over and over. And then so she does the mouthing and all this. She's very patient. She waits for the whole thing. And then all of a sudden she just goes very silent. And then she just goes, I loved him. And that was like the
Mm-hmm.
full pattern break of,
100%.
oh, yeah, yeah,
New
yeah.
beat. New beat.
Bang. Like
Yep.
in.
Yep.
And
Yep.
then now we're in a new beat, like big time,
Big
you
time.
know. Yeah.
Yeah, she's so good at that. I mean,
Mm.
and it's just like, and me, frankly, I was like, I'm also like, am I gonna say all of this shit again? Like, I'm gonna forget. I need,
Now
like,
you
I think
committed, man. You got to do
I
it.
was like I was like 3 for 3 or 4 for 4, like pretty, like 95% the same. And then it's
I
like, and then she
know.
did that break. I'm like, okay, now we can get to what the fuck happened.
Yes,
Uh,
totally. And what I love though is even that's not enough for you though. So she takes it down to the full like raw whatever. And then we're in this rawness, and then what one of the things you're best at, you use this fucking specificity
mm,
like to really make her suffer. So my husband was thinking of you while he was having sex with me and going into
oh,
the fucking details like of that. you know, and then she's like, that's horrible. You know, he shouldn't have done that. Or we go, yes, but he did. And so then we're in this another repetition, but it's like you're seeing this kind of emotion, but you're just making her suffer like real full on. So is that an annoyance thing as well? Like just make the other
No,
person
I mean that was me reading her, like that was me. What I read on her was dread.
yeah.
Like her, like I was manic and she was dread. She was in dread, and then so when she did that break, then something happened in the story that we hadn't figured out yet. We didn't even know
Okay.
that it was tied to that
Interesting.
other thing. So
Yeah,
something,
great.
so now something has to contextualize dread and mania. And
Yes.
and so and I like contextualize. I hate justify. Like that's good for you,
Yeah, I
Swollen.
was
But we're
about to
doing,
say justify, but yeah.
yeah. I like. I mean, that's I actually I think that's another Sutton. Like he's just like, no, man, we don't justify. We contextualize it. Yeah, okay, we contextualize. But
Whatever. Okay.
it's because justify has the connotation that something's wrong, and contextualize has the connotation of there's more to do.
I don't know. I might disagree with you on that only because you might
And also
justify a
it could
paragraph.
be culturally semantical, maybe.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, totally. And yeah, for me, it's semantics. Sometimes as well, like in the earlier kind of levels of improv, and people aren't committing enough. I think justify is justified in saying, because they very often they're just not, they don't trust themselves. They're not going there and just going, right, I'm committed to this. I'm going to justify what I just said.
Yeah, and so
Um,
my question would be, does the idea of justifying add more pressure to them than contextualize?
I don't think some of them are smart enough. You heard it here. Sorry,
Play
guys.
to the top of
Yeah.
your character's integrity. Intelligence doesn't matter. We're
Yeah,
all
yeah, yeah.
fucking idiots. Look what
That's
just
right.
happened in
Look
America.
what just happened. Okay. Do I need more
Jesus.
evidence?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do
Okay.
want somebody to justify that fucking vote. That's what I want justified. I don't want to contextualize that at all. But guess what? We're gonna have to.
Well,
Oh,
yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So for
I need to call
me,
my therapist.
contextualization is, there's a lot more involved in that, and I think you have to be a higher order thinker. And I think maybe sometimes some teachers in improv underestimate what level of learning someone is at, and they don't even
Yeah,
have that. It's not even there for them.
yeah,
Like
yeah, fair enough. The only absolute is there are no absolutes, and so whatever somebody needs, and I'm, my dad and mom were, but my dad was a coach, my mom was a teacher, and so like the teaching genes are in me, and there's like in the lineage of my family there's teachers, and so I think I'm pretty good at reading people and
yeah,
seeing, I have a natural curiosity of like, how can I get in here, what can I drop off for you that can be helpful going away from here. So yeah, I definitely don't want to present, and I don't want to present contextualize as a, nothing's a must, everything's a will
yeah,
see.
yeah. Well, I think Heather, is it Urquhart? Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Urquhart.
Yeah, Urquhart.
Urquhart.
She said her answer, the answer in improv is always it depends.
Yeah, that's what I say.
Oh, there you go. It was Joe's to begin with. There we go.
I'm sure we came up with it at the same time, because I would
Okay.
never dishonor. Again, she's another one that I love dearly.
Yeah.
There's no other. She's a pixie, that Heather
Yeah, she's
Urquhart.
so cute. She's
Oh
so
my
cute,
God. And
cute,
she's
cute,
just,
cute, cute.
yeah. And she's
Yeah.
a adorable, wide-eyed pixie with a fucking heart of a barbarian.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love her.
She can put that on her bio.
Yep.
So yeah, basically that Scram thing, the biscuit thing, like what, so it was more like for me to have you here, have the chance to ask you what the fuck was going on. Like, so in your mind, at that point, at that pattern break, when she said, I loved him, is that when you started to realize what this was about? Like, were you just patterning before that? Like,
Yes.
what was right? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just patterning before that. I was patterning before that to broaden out my mania. And it's also what mania was attached to. mild, not confusion, but mild disorientation. It was like disorientation and mania, like manic disorientation.
mm.
Like I stretch going for like common sense and calm and sense. And then Jill was in just dread. And so then when that break happened, I loved him, you know. Then the only thing, the obvious thing to me was because we were both widows, is that right? Or I was a new widow.
You were the widow, you were the real widow, and she was a widow, but she couldn't express that because the whole of society didn't see her as a widow. But you got to be, everybody felt sorry for you because you were the real widow.
That's it.
But the compensation to her was, yeah, I might be the real widow, but he was thinking of you.
Yeah.
When we were having sex.
Yeah. Yeah. It had to be my husband. I loved him, you know. And the way she said it was wistful enough that tied to her dread.
Yeah.
And then it got labeled as grief, which worked.
Yes. Well, you labeled it. You said it. Do you know what's happening? We're grieving here because you were just
because I was contextualizing.
Feeding each other fucking biscuits and shit, like fucking awesome scene, right? Because by this time we went crazy. You're on the ground, fucking feeding each other. Yeah. I'm telling you, it's one of the best scenes of all time, right? So it's fucking Joe Bill just annoying everyone with his fucking repetition, and then Jill Bard smashes it down. Fucking, I loved him, you know. And then Joe Bill's and then she's like, it's not fair because I'm not even the widow. I didn't get the grief. I don't get, and you're like, yes, but you had him, and all this, and then it turns into this. You're trying to comfort each other, and then she's touching your ass, and then it fucking turns into this like thing. You're on the ground feeding each other biscuits, like fucking screaming. She does Royal Britannia on the fucking stage. It just goes crazy. It just goes to absolute fucking chaos, right? Like a fucking shitstorm, right?
Yeah.
And then after all of that, there's sort of like a breath, and then you go, I know what's happened or whatever, and we're grieving Dolores or whatever her name was. I feel like Dolores is a good name for if that was not her name.
One of us was Dolores for sure.
Yeah.
I was probably here. Yes. Dolores and Marjorie. That sounds like two names.
Marjorie, because she called you Marguerite, and then she realized that your name was Marjorie, and she made it part of the mistake of the character, which was again another utilization. But it was just amazing, and you're just like, we're grieving and all this, and this then became the contextualization or justification for the complete and utter fucking shit show of being on the floor, feeding each other and going crazy. And
yeah, in that moment, grieving was the answer to the Jeopardy question. What would have two people behave?
Yes.
What same thing would have two people behave in a way of dread and mania? And then, of course, it had to be grieving, and especially since someone we had lost. And then that was after He Loved You Too. He loved you too. Much more than me, but at least I had the pleasures of his body, and he had my body, and he took me, Marjorie. He took me.
Yeah.
Deep inside me, and I felt him love me. He'd say your name. As it was,
yeah, exactly. I just fucking going on and on and that was amazing.
What a fucking mental show.
And then it was amazing. And then, like, you have to watch these people. I'm putting it in the description. And then though, you bowled it out of the park, man, when you took it back to the soup scene and you came to get the recipe and you revealed to Jill, it looked like she was like, what? Like, she was like, what? The character was like, what? That she had also, sorry, spoiler alert, she had also not only been the one to kill him, but kill your character as well.
Mm-hmm.
It was the massive reveal at the end
that killed the woman, and it was orchestrated by the woman that I had come to visit, right?
Yes, Jill. And that character.
But my soup character, her soup character was the same as the woman that I had come to visit, but my soup character was the assassin.
Yeah.
and then my woman who I had played, I think and that's when I came in and I cut off the face of the ghost or
Yes.
something.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, the
uh,
husband, I think they found the husband like with no face or whatever.
yeah,
And
with no face, and like want to see the look in his eyes or something or whatever. I mean,
it,
she started the horrific shit.
yeah,
Oh
totally.
my
And
god, yeah,
and
I've
then
forgotten all this.
and then you like so then you go, I deserve the recipe now. Give me the recipe, and then like you have a little talk about that. But then you go, I killed two people, and she's like, "What? Two people or whatever?" So her surprise at that looked like it was literally Jill's
It
surprise at this
was.
new
It was
at
Jill's
this new
surprise. Yeah.
information.
She had,
She was
yeah.
holding back laughing, like you could tell that she's like, "What are you doing?"
Yep. She did not see that. And in a way, I took a chance. Like that show was going so well. I'm like, I'm going for the
The
moon.
pinnacle.
So
Yeah.
killing that second person,
Yeah.
and then bringing it back forward into that scene was like I figured it's a high risk move that'll pay off big if we play it without hesitation. But for sure, Jill, the actor, did not see that one coming.
Yeah.
And then we made it okay. Paprika, you fool. But then what about the cornbread?
Yeah, that's on the other side of the card, she said, which was a brilliant answer to that.
It's but I think it played. I think you can for sure see Jill's shock and the Jill like,
Yeah.
what the fuck are you talking about?
You can see it,
but,
the wheels turning. You can see her figuring it out.
Yeah.
Like as you're saying it to her, you can see her going, "Oh, you busted."
It's like Patty's dying on me.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And then it's her first shock, and then she's like, "Oh, you fool, Paprika."
Yeah.
But it's
yeah.
I think it still played, and we never went back to the football coach, did we, or did we?
No.
At the very end?
No.
Yeah, and I don't remember
would you? Why would you when you've got that? You're not.
Yeah, I mean, I'm literally asking because I can't remember what the last beat of it is. Like, I just remember. I remember that moment of surprise, and then but it did make sense that the assassin would kill both people because he wanted that fucking recipe so bad.
Yes.
And
but then it begs the question. Who the fuck was she talking to that whole time then? If that lady was already dead.
No, that lady, the husband was already dead. The lady had the lady also either commissioned the assassin to kill the woman too, or the assassin did that of his own volition.
Yeah. So
and
funny.
And we don't know. But it's, it would have been fine had we just kept it simple and just gone back to that first scene as well.
Yeah.
But it was for sure. My move was when I ran off stage and then came in as that guy.
Yeah.
It was greedy. It was definitely greedy. So I can cop to that. It's like, let's go fucking.
Yeah. Let's heighten it as far as it'll go. Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
But I don't think it hurt the show at the end of the day.
Oh, definitely not. Definitely not. Yeah. And so you have to go watch it. If you're watching this video, you have to go and watch it. It is
maybe put a disclaimer at the beginning of this about we're gonna talk about the Scram show, and we're gonna thoroughly go through beat by beat. If you don't want to be surprised and you enjoyed the first part of the interview,
true.
Watch the Scram show, and then we will deconstruct everything that you're about to see.
Yeah, totally. I might have to do that. Put that in.
I mean, but this won't come out for 2 more years, so it's fine.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so there was something else I just wanted to say about that before I move on. Yeah, again, looking at what you love through what you do, I feel like you do have a love of repetition, and you love of repetition, using repetition to reveal yourself in some kind of metaphoric way. There's just so many metaphors and things going on there, even when she says having breakfast tea at 4 p.m. And even just within that, like what is it saying about the characters, about their relationship, about the whole thing, like just that one sentence. So yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So I feel like more than anything else, that show for me just showed me your real love of that, like repetition, revealing yourself through that repetition, and revealing yourself through metaphor.
Yeah, I think I would even go pull out one
Of
step
course you
more,
would.
and my I'd like to pull out now. Um,
Yeah. There it is. Yeah.
you know what really lost in the election? Getting canceled. Fuck me.
Yeah.
Um, the what I'm really addicted to is the awareness of patterns, and repetition is one type of pattern,
Yeah.
and that is very uh to get to this version of myself and to deconstruct the chaos inside me. I've had, some of the therapy has been like some CBT. It's like, well, what are my patterns and what are the impulses that cause these
Yeah.
patterns? And a lot of it, the pattern in this metaphor I created a carnival on top of the trauma. The
Mm.
carnival just becomes this Joe Bill, fun guy hold court in the bar so that people couldn't really see what I was not willing to look at myself.
Mm.
And I think a lot of us post COVID are kind of like searching through the fucking, antechambers of the basements of our souls. Um, but just like, and then like dealing with the the patterns of like self-sabotage and just misbehavior and all of this. They're just so simply rooted in just a couple of things, like not being able or having the tools to like examine what the fuck
Mm.
I was in denial of or anything. I think my hyper vigilance, I'm always aware of patterns, and I love the idea that two is pattern and three is dimension. And so the
Yeah.
third part of the pattern, and this is right, just right back to NLP. It's like two is pattern, but we know if the pattern continues, then there has to be that third thing. So what if it's three? What if it's four? What if it's five? What if it's 20?
Mm.
and and some of that is just like exercising my own, self-loathing, or my that whole, like my therapist says, feelings just want to be felt. And it's not really loving if you love everybody but you don't let love back in. And I was like, oh fuck. um but the more, especially listening to comedians, actors, improvisers on podcasts, and like everybody coming to these type of conclusions like I have kind of at the same time, it's like, oh, there's a big group of us that are, we had the time to sort of self-reflect. There's no carnival, there's no circus we can present when we're online, or
Mm-hmm.
like, when we're isolated, unless we do something
Yes.
online.
Yeah.
And then the thing that I did online was story chain, and like, oh, that's just like
Yes.
authentic real story sharing with each other. And that also helped, you know help bring me to the reaction of people to story chain, and how like grateful they were for that. It's like, I wasn't ready for that. Like, I just want to have like it's a little cocktail party. But like, no, we all live in COVIDville, we're all isolated, let's just share stories with
Mm.
people from all over the world and realize, that literally is the manifestation of me making the world smaller. And then it's
Mm.
like, well, if I'm going to be in it and all these people are sharing their vulnerabilities, then I have to too. And that's partly, and then all of a sudden, I get cancer, and it's like, I'm ready to get back out. Now it's like, you have three fucking cancers.
Mm.
And so, so then I stopped. I put a pause on writing my book, which I'm about 2/3 the way done with. And I'm just like, I'm going to finish writing this show. And I worked out some of these. My show is basically 5 or 6 stories. One of them's kind of a double story that I kind of honed in some storytelling shows. And they are all examining what's the cause and effect of all the different patterns in my life. Like my hypervigilance isn't like, it's not doom driven necessarily. The doom, I guess, if there's anything that's like tragic or something about it, that I say my hypervigilance is like knowing for sure that at some point in my life, I will be in a room, probably teaching improv, and a truck is just going to crash through the fucking wall. And some or all of us will be killed. And I know for sure this is going to happen. But I don't have to worry, because when that moment comes, I will have hopefully a moment of satisfaction that I was right. And then the rest of it is just paying attention to, like, if I hear some, if I hear water drip twice, what the fuck is that? You
Yeah.
know? And so,
Yeah. I'm like that
yeah,
with my car. If I hear something weird in the car, I'm like, what's wrong? What's going on with the car?
yeah. So repetition is an obvious tip of the hat to pattern, but then there's emotional patterns, there's behavioral patterns, there's given a scenario, the emotional journey. What does Patty call it? The internal narrative, right? The internal narrative of a character is a pattern that's not necessarily literal, but it's also tied to the circumstantial pattern of the story.
Mm.
And so I'm like, I can't, in a way, it's like a little bit of an OCD thing. Like, I can't help not notice pattern. And
Yeah.
so when I'm directing groups, if it happens once, it'll happen a second time. If somebody starts something, nobody parties alone. Like, everything is
Yeah.
about patterns.
Yeah.
Um, and if we do find ourselves into repetition, all repetition is an invitation for a dynamic shift, and all repetition is a song.
Mm.
And
Interesting.
so, yeah, so that's, I mean, yeah, I love this chat, because you've gotten deeper into I don't think I need to see my therapist next week. You've gotten deeper into my shit than anybody has in a long, long time. So,
Yeah, it's fascinating to me. I
hmm.
love the pattern thing. I love the metaphor thing. I love everything is a metaphor for everything else, that. And
Everything's connected to everything. There's
yes,
always more than one thing that's true at the same time, always. There's
100%.
there's just like all of these it's so crazy. I guess in Germany some crazy shit happened, like right on the heels of Trump getting elected, where now the the Nazis that are over there, they're in charge of the banks or something, and now they're going to force a new election, and all the Germans are worried that, like,
Oh God.
that faction's going to take over again. And it's like, I mean, it's all uh nationalism, like hyper nationalism, to me is something that a small group of people want, so that they can control the patterns that are within that, without worried
Mm.
about the other people that want to control the patterns within their shit. And
But
this whole
also they're recognized past patterns. They don't want things to change. They want to go back to the pattern, to the old pattern, you know.
right, which benefited that select few.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's for sure. I wondered this out loud in our Bass Prob show with Mark the night after the election. We had gone through some silly runs and some just, dealing with shit runs and examining stuff and metaphorically, what does it mean and whatever. And then there was a pause and we changed the hooks, and there was like, 30 seconds we didn't say anything. And I just said, I kind of think that misogyny's more present. No, that misogyny's, uh, I kind of think that our country's more misogynist than racist. Your thoughts, Donnie? I just went like this.
Put it out there. Yeah.
And he just let it sit. He just let it sit. He just
Yeah.
let it sit. He's like, well, that's a good one.
Oh my God. Yeah.
But I mean, I think I have an ex-wife and a daughter in South Africa, and going over to South Africa is really interesting to me, because everybody there, at least in Cape Town, or, I spent most of my time around Cape Town, everybody there, it's like, you're in South Africa, everybody's racist. Oh, so how do you guys deal with that? What do you mean? We're all racist. Yeah, but how do you deal with that? Oh no, we just know everybody's racist. So what is, but how do you, day to day, what do you mean day to day? Ah, shame, man, everyone's racist. Yeah, okay, so, and now I got to go to work. Okay. And so it's different because the white people are the minorities, and the white people are like, a lot of them the descendants of the fucking
Mm,
people that came to take over a trade route,
yeah.
and of all the brutal shit that's happened over there, they're just kind of like, yeah, business as usual. And it makes me, I'm taking like a fresh look at like what's the effect of not uh of everyone as a country not being able to express the nature of our racism or bias or sexism or like
Mm,
whatever.
mm, mm.
Like what if there was a day where everybody had to just have conversations with everybody they meet that starts with, I'm a racist and I'm a sexist and here's what that means, do you want to have a drink?
Yeah.
And then so it's like, if you don't stigmatize it, uh then maybe a productive conversation or something can happen. Maybe it's like, like people have affairs, and it's not really that they love the other person, they love the affair more than they love the other person. It's like the
Mm,
naughtiness, it's all that fucking puritanical,
mm.
railing against the fucking crown shit, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I don't know.
It's big. It's big.
Yeah, it's big, it's very big, but none of it so far, uh we're lucky enough that no matter which flavor of fascist is trying to run us, we can still make art for now.
Yes. And I think it's times like these that we realize how important art is, you know.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's yeah, if well, yeah, if we get uh if the artists are made to go away, or if that becomes a death wish, if you present as an artist, then the species as we know it will be doomed.
I agree. I'm going to reel
Not that
this
we're
in.
not already.
I'm going to reel it in on that note. I'm going to reel it
Yeah,
in
yeah.
to the last video, which was
Oh, Lee.
Lee Paradigm. So
Yep.
this is probably the newest one because I think it was 2024,
Yeah, this was
possibly.
just 2 months ago, I think, 2 or 3 months ago.
Yeah. So this was really firstly, I just want to give credit to the musician, amazing musician. I think he called him Sasha or something.
Yeah, Sasha Hudemacher. He's I think born in Russia, lives in the Netherlands. He's the musician that plays mostly at Boom Chicago.
Oh, okay.
Um, he's a genius. He has some like etudes and piano things on Spotify. So it's like it's Hudemacher, but it's like Hoede Dutch spelling something.
Yeah. That's
But
really,
yeah,
yeah,
he's
yeah.
a dear friend and absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely very it was beautiful to watch the two of you working with him. And I say with him
Yeah.
rather than he's providing us a soundtrack, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
working with him. Yeah.
Yep. He's in the mind
Yeah.
melt. We're all, for sure, we're all
Yes.
connected.
Yeah,
Yep.
100%. And I said in the other video, which you're gonna go back and watch, guys. Um, is that he brings out the magician. No, I feel like that he brings out the magician in you.
Hmm.
And you allow him to bring the magician out in you. So this was a really interesting I feel like almost peas in a pod type thing going on here. But the interesting thing about this for me was that you had your sort of characters, your select characters, but it's almost like neither of them could function without the other. It
Yep.
was very, very much a kind of umbilical thing going, like a real, like real connection between you and him, and that you know you just couldn't have just one of those characters like that. You both had to be there, right?
I think that's very insightful and very accurate. Yeah. Yep.
Mm. It starts with I think the suggestion was something like something that annoys you that people do or something.
Oh,
Like whining and breathing hard or something. One was whining and the other one was like eating and breathing loudly or something was like the suggestion.
yeah.
It's
I
like
think,
two
yeah. I think,
suggestions.
yeah. Whining for sure was one of it. because I think that we started off sort of.
You were a couple and whining. So Lee was whining about you brought me this place, we brought me this place, and then you're like, oh, it's all we could afford. And then you did true Joe Bill style. We go very specifically into what that means, the definition of afford, whatever. So
Yeah.
going into this kind of like specific definitional commentary, like so very often as well you'll do a thing where you're doing a commentary about your own thought or whatever it is as well, so like a metacognition type thing going on. And it's just really interesting because you're both, so you still manage to have this sort of difference in character, but you just cannot have one without the other. It's just an interesting dynamic. I'm not sure how it's achieved, but there's something really special about it. Then you go from that to what I can only say to me reminds me of the sort of variety show vaudeville kind of like comic sort of two sales execs doing repetition and a lot of it.
God.
Right?
Yep. Oh my God. Yep. I forgot that one. Yep.
Yeah. So that's like, and again, hinting back to that classic comedy kind of.
Yeah, it was kind of like a like vaudeville meets Glengarry Glen Ross. like just a little bit of kind of Mammoth in there, because there was darkness underneath sort of the good-natured music of their exchanges, which was, I mean, that's a song for sure, those guys. Whereas the first two, I think, were two not quite old, but like 60-year-old, 55 to 60-year-old Jewish lesbians in the woods.
Yes.
Talking about their anniversary and their love language is complaining.
Yeah.
without calling it out, without whatever.
Actually, that's really profound. That's actually really profound where you just said their love language is whinging. Interesting with that connection of the rant and how the rant can connect just as much as anything else, right?
Yeah.
So really interesting. But I love that oldie worldy comedic sort of repetition for the sales people. And then we had this wonderful musical interlude with the great musician. And I don't know, you can tell me, you can speak to this, what the choice was here, to go to a very clown-esque mime type. We're going to just copy each other and be like looking around the corner of this, thing on stage. And my question would be like, were you trying to find the next character? Was this just like a game? Like what was for you at the time? What was the kind of purpose of this little interlude that sort of separated before we got to that third couple?
I know what it was for me, and I suspect it was the same for Lee, and that is we both were aware of the similarities of the first two scenes, and we thought this was probably going to be
interesting
act 3. And so what is a dynamic break? Because Lee and I are very verbal, and we're very, we sing like I love your analogy that like there's an umbilical cord, because we're a duet. We're always a vocal verbal duet. Oftentimes I'll say. And so we both wanted to depart from the verbal, and what we really hadn't done was like something really a physical departure.
Yeah.
And so then just playing around, playing the silent tension of peekaboo, really.
Yeah.
It seemed those first two, they had the clever and the witty and all of that shit in there. So it seemed that we could discover something just silly and childish and dumb and like pointless. And both of us will live in a pointless, childish, stupid moment for as long as it takes.
Yes. And so you discovered these characters from that place.
Yeah, that's right.
These next character, yeah. And you can kind of see that because these characters, yes, are very different in feel. Again, umbilical, like totally, right? But we've got these two sort of childlike, and who knows if they are children at this time, but basically there's all this coming together and there's all this mime, and then you're the first to speak, and you just say it very slowly. And I thought you were going to sing it at first, but you didn't. You just sort of said it, and you said, would you be my partner at the science fair, right? And he's like, yes, and he's got this really interesting accent. I'm not sure what the fuck's going on there, but it's a weird, like it's a weird accent, and he's got this real interesting. He's almost like I imagine him as like a sort of plasticine character or something, like just kind of like.
Yeah, it's kind of like Hispanic-ish.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. And he has like
yeah, like that. Yeah. Brilliant, right? Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
And we should say that this is a show we're doing in Poland, in the heart of Poland, and the level of English that is spoken by people there is, not like you would find in, the Netherlands, or like even in like Munich in Germany. There's a lot of like there's some English there, but we also know, and Lee is one of the first people that kind of taught me how to adjust my playing style, especially verbally, when we're playing in non-English first language countries.
Okay. Yeah.
And so in a way it was coming back home to that. So then to play two, I think we were two teenagers, maybe 13, 14 years old, something like that.
Yeah.
And science fair seemed right.
Yeah, and it's great. It was really good. It was so good. I love the low status too, because we just had this sort of high status interactions as well with the salespeople and stuff. So it was really nice to have that low status, like not sure kind of.
Yeah, because the silly game that we played was really like, so what is that? We're looking for connection.
Yeah.
And then I just read that. Yeah, I feel like as that game went on, we became younger.
Yes.
Until we lived in that sort of just freshly into our teenage years type thing.
Yeah.
They probably each discovered their own pubic hair within the past year.
Yeah, totally. And it was really good. And then I think he kind of forced you to come up with the offer pretty much very gently, but of what is the experiment. So what is the thing that we're gonna do? And you went with washing clothes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering, how pre-thought out was that? Was it the first thing that came to you, or you thought, I need something that can have some kind of order to it?
When I was in 7th grade, I did a science fair project with my science fair partner, and that project was called Testing Textiles.
Right.
And we took swatches of different materials, and then we subjected them to, water and heat and flame and blah, 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 blah. And this was our science fair project.
Interesting.
And so I don't know if I had that in mind when I said, will you be my science fair partner? Because I didn't know what his answer would be, or if he would have a different idea or whatever.
Yeah.
But then once he said yes, he did without saying anything, make me label it.
Yes.
And because of the pattern began where I spoke first, then it's like, oh, fuck you, Lee. Now I have to drive this thing.
Yeah.
But it's, again, that's interplay with me and one of my dearest friends in the world.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, okay. And so then I just turned that into like, what's the stupidest idea based on testing textiles I could come up with? And it was just like, we could do something about washing clothes. I don't even remember how I said that or how it came about, but yes, our science fair project would be about washing clothes.
Yeah.
Which is like pathetic.
Yeah.
Like these kids don't have to your low status observation. They don't have a chance.
Yeah, totally. But the commitment, that's what sells it, right? And then what I loved about that was you kind of used the in NLP we talk about like with presenting, like anchoring on stage and stuff, and so you use that anchoring for here's the hot water, here's the hot water, here's the cold water, here's the room temperature, And then once you set that up, once you set that pattern up, you just kept coming back to it. Here we go again, coming back to it. But it was so much coming back to it. It was like, again, on the edge of, oh my God, I'm gonna do it again, like so that whole thing. And then there was like the pattern break, which I can't remember what that was, but there was a really lovely moment where the musician did this big crescendo, and it was in perfect timing with the kind of punchline of that. So it was just a really beautiful synergy going on between the music and how your emotions were moving, and how your dialogue was moving, and the sound of your voice. It was very musical.
I do
The
remember
musicality of that,
I remember that happening. And was it as we were imagining ourselves winning a Nobel Prize, or was it before that?
No,
Or
that was
something like
before. So this was sort of like just walking out and then doing the repetition, and then he kind of must have just known. Maybe he felt it as well. This repetition, and then so he starts like doing that to
Yeah.
make you come out of the repetition. Possibly is what
Yeah,
was.
I don't even notice Sasha when he plays because he's so in our hearts.
Yes.
Like
Yeah,
it's so it's not, oh, thank God there's a piano player there. He's a freaking mind reader. And it's
yes.
just
You
like,
can
and
you can
he
say that.
knows he I can't explain it.
Yeah.
He's brilliant. He yeah, he and Joe Samuel, like I don't know any better improvisational piano players in all of Europe or UK, to be fair. But I mean, there's Sasha. It's like he has a romanticism about him
Mm.
that is different from Joe, but it just lives. He lives in your breath. He
Yeah.
lives, and he knows. I mean, the thing about Boom Chicago is like those people are the best in the world, in my opinion, at like American style short form comedy and the
Yeah.
rhythm and the percussiveness of
Mm.
comedy, and how
Mm.
the beat and tempo has to be. And then you put that and Sasha's a master. And then you put that underneath this enchanting ability to just live in everyone's breath,
Mm.
and not there's no fear in him. He just knows he knows the call to make, because it's the call that we all make, because we're all he's one of us. Like we all make
Yes.
the calls that we have to make, and you don't even, all you know is next thing you know, you're on the rise and it just goes. But I for sure I know what you're talking about, but I can't
Yeah.
even tell you what happened because I just
Yeah.
know that he was present in that way.
Yeah, definitely. I felt he was a major sort of contributor to that, and what you say is also echoed in the way that at the end of the show you brought him off the piano, you did a bow with him. He was in the center. So it's very much a really important thing. To realize that he is part of the show. Yeah, because very often people take the musicians for granted, but again, like you said, he's really good at what he does as well, though. So it's
Yeah,
kind of like he's integral
yeah,
to what's going on.
yep.
So then what we sort of saw after that, and that sort of big climax thing, is we sort of revisited the other characters. But what was cool was I think you used that thing where you're sort of talking, somebody's talking, and then someone's in another scene, like so to get back, you
Oh
know what I
God,
mean?
that's right. Yeah, we
Yeah.
do. So Lee and I first, Lee spoke about wanting to do scene edits that were seamless and without movement. And we just we're speaking as we're speaking, and then we just change into the characters from the other scene without moving. And so it's usually with the voice.
Yes. And
And
there's a
it's
word like one of them you used it's scientific, and then you knew straight away we're going into the science people. Like there's some kind of like wordle kind of thing between you two, like a word
yep.
play thing that's going on.
Yeah.
And it just seamlessly kind of goes and goes. And I think it did end with the medals, the Nobel.
Yeah. So we spun back and forth through a couple of
Yeah.
them. Yeah.
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 And
You
then we
you you did. You went back to the sales guys, and you went back to the couple. And I think you might have ended on the sciencey people. But I mean,
Science.
mainly overall, it was and also what I appreciated too was again playing with stereotypes. So rather than this high status academic, you got a low status academic.
Hmm.
Which you do in the Bass Prov as well. So people expect that kind of person to be like this, and then they're not like that.
Yep.
So playing with status in a like unpredictable kind of way, which was really cool.
Yeah, there's a duo in Los Angeles called Bob Dassey and Stephanie Weir. They're a married couple. Their group is called Weird Ass. She's my favorite improviser on the planet, and she's absolutely brilliant. And Bob is one of the first people that also inspired a little bit of the solo start. But when she's from West Texas, and he's like she can play like single moms in the trailer, like chain smoking, and he'll play the kid, and she's going to go to the bar to find him a new dad. And
yeah.
Bob Dassey's genius is he can play. I learned this from him. If you're going to play a child, be the most emotionally intelligent child in the universe. And so against Stephanie's horrific declaration as a trailer park mom, he will speak to the emotional impact that her move is going to have on him eventually.
Yeah, great.
And so I think it's only fair to call those two people out, because Stephanie's done Bass Prov. Bob hasn't yet, but I relate to that. Half of my family is kind of origins of trailer park, but Bob is like really an underappreciated, brilliant improviser who, when I don't particularly like playing kids, but when I do, there's a thing that Jill says: when you play, you play with all these different people, and every time you play, you borrow little pieces of their brain and put them in yours.
Cute.
And so that the smart kid thing, like that, Bob Dassey's brain was very much with me in that.
Wow.
So shout out Bob Dassey.
I appreciated that quality. So just to wrap up, I mean, I'm supposed to be somewhere in 15 minutes, but this is what happens when we get together.
Improv.
Yeah.
The bar closes in an hour and 45. I hope I have.
Okay, so let me firstly just say thanks so much for coming on. I mean, that may seem like an abrupt finish, but I don't feel like it is. I feel like it's an interlude before the next one that we do at another time.
Fantastic.
Because there's so much.
And you're very welcome. More. This has been an absolute joy.
Oh, thank you.
It's just thank you. I loved your interview with Patti. I want you to interview more people, because I think you're a great interviewer. Because it's a chat. It's a chat with a mate, Here we are. And I'm just as big of an improv nerd as you are. And so, and then we have all of these little, neuroscience, NLP, brain stuff, like things in common. I mean, the next thing is I'll be over for the New Zealand festival in Auckland in the spring. And so I'm not sure if I'm going to jump over to Brizzy again, but if I can't get something for sure booked in Sydney, I think I'm going to do Melbourne, and then maybe I'll come up and see you all up there. But it would be great to have a pint or two.
Yeah, for sure.
When I get over. Yep.
For sure. I may even make it over to New Zealand. So we'll see if that happens. We'll definitely do that. So yes, the invitation is open for another interview at some other time. We will talk about that, and just maybe we'll watch this back, see what things we want to expand on, all of that, come up with something.
And if you want to cut out all of the political angst, feel free to do that, though I don't require it. It's just like I definitely still feel like in a little place of trauma, and so if it doesn't belong in an improv podcast, do what you want with this.
Improv is life.
Oh, you're just a woman after my own heart.
Yeah, improv is life. Yeah, totally. So yeah, that doesn't really bother me or worry me. Because I'm an improviser. So have you got a website or something like people can find you? I will put it all in the description, but is there anything you want people to particularly know at the end of this? It's like, for example, when we can expect your book.
Yeah, I want to be I want to be finished with the writing of it by the end of this year. And we'll see if that happens. I think I'm committed to 12 chapters. The book is called Maybe It's Your Fault, an improv book. And so it deals with being in your head. It deals with a little bit of neuroscience. I put forth the idea of all improvisers, once you're in it a while, if you're playing with a group, that there's value in asking yourself and discussing with your group, why are we improvising? Is this something that's recreational? Is it a hobby, or is it professional? What's our aspirations? What's our dreams?
Good questions, yeah.
And rather than telling people what that is, it'll be like a 9-box questions to facilitate a conversation you can have. Because over the years, I've seen when teams go bad to a degree that's not necessary, a lot of it's just because people are not on the same page about why they're improvising. And if we're improvising for a different reason, it's totally okay to go and do different things with different people.
Yes.
It's not dating, and it's not a bad breakup. It's just we want to play in different ways.
Yeah.
And then a couple of stories along the way. So there's that. I'm at Joe Bill Improv on Instagram for now. Or Mr. Mr. Joe Bill. And I think that's everything anybody needs to know.
Okay, cool. Like I said to everyone, I will put all those videos that we mentioned in the series in the description, so you can have a watch of them. And I will put something at the beginning about the spoilers, because there's a lot of spoilers in this.
There's some spoilers, but it's thorough. I mean, it's I've done a lot of podcasts and a lot of interviews. I've never done one like this and this thorough, and I loved it. So thank you. Mwah. Nothing but love.
Thank you so much for being here. It's been an absolute pleasure and an honor, and I'll see you next time.
See you next time. I'm gonna have a pint now.
All right, let's go.
Right.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for watching.